Hey guys, thanks for watching and welcome to episode 12 of Raising Junior. So first I'd like to talk about something that's on everyone's mind, and that is the COVID-19 pandemic. So I hope you're watching this from home, staying safe, staying in isolation, and avoiding unnecessary contact with other people, as this will eventually help to stop this pandemic, and will also take care of the health workers who are the real heroes in this situation and taking care of us, putting their health on the front line of this pandemic.
We are going on a summer holiday. No more worries for us. We can't do.
What have you drawn there? What have you drawn there?
A rainbow. Make our dreams come true.
So coming back to the project, in the last episode we finished the rear right inner arch. So now it's time to do the outer quarter panel and then move forward by replacing the front wing. So we took the first template out of paper, however we noticed the paper was too thin and wasn't holding the shape too well, so we used some thicker cardboard, like the cereal box type, and we're just transferring the edge onto this. The cardboard has the advantage of staying more straight. For welding in the quarter panel, we follow the sequence. So we welded in the spare wheel well, and now we're going to weld in this reinforcing plate. After we'll put on the quarter panel, so we won't have access to reach this part. Here we clamp the two panels together, and this is the last fit before we actually start welding the quarter panel in place. So we use the intergrips to hold in different spaces. And then we're just going to start welding the closest space and use more intergrips as we go along. So moving them around the part we're going to weld. We're going to MIG weld the two panels together, so it's important to leave a bit of a gap to leave some room for expansion of the metal. So as we were welding, we started noticing that the gap started to contract. It's important to have some space, or else we'll have like a bulge or some unwanted high areas and the panel won't be flat. So we use this little die grinder to open the gap a little bit to avoid this. So we'll create a little bit of a gap and then fill it in later. We spent some time grinding the welds. I'm pretty happy how flat it is. However, we just noticed there's some pinholes that we needed to fill up. So what I did is we just took some light from the backside, and that will show the pinholes quite clearly. And here we also finished welding the quarter panel to the inner arch. So here we have a shot of the quarter panel finished. So next we can move on to the front wing. To replace the last part of the bodywork. This is the right mudguard, and it's not in too bad a shape, but there is various holes all over the place, as well as some areas which are very weak. And since we have the new replacement panel, we'll just replace the whole thing. So what we did is we marked less than we need to cut, and we're carefully going to cut away the main part. After when we're closer, we're just going to fit the corners and see to cut as close as possible with the new part. So once we remove the main panel, we'll be able to make these repairs over here, as we'll have more access. After we trim this corner carefully, we'll be able to replace this area over here. Once we remove the front mudguard, we notice this panel is in pretty bad shape. It's corroded pretty badly, so we'll have to replace this part too. This is the mudguard support removed. We made a cardboard template as usual with all the folds replicating the original shape. And this is the new piece that we made from a new piece of steel. So the mudguard support will be in this position. So the next job is to continue removing what's left over from the old mudguard and start placing the new one here. We'll have to be very careful as the windscreen goes over this piece, so we might also have to try the windscreen seal in place. So now we're at the trial stages of the mudguard. We removed most of the material that we had to. So what we're doing is we're removing in slow paces just to be able to line up everything. One little detail to watch out for is this drip rail over here, as it goes further in than the step nose. So what we're going to do is we're just going to cut a slot and then align the mudguard further in. We also left some extra material here, so then we can trim closer and leave the right gap for welding. So at the trial stage, we're just trimming some material from this edge here. It's important to go little by little just to see how everything will change with the rest of the panel. We also made some small relief cuts here as they weren't punched from the factory. And then we're going to try to align this area here. So this corner has to move up to flow nicely with the windscreen, and also open this gap over here which is too close. We also need to align the swage line with the door, as well as this one up here. So every little change we make affects the whole panel, so we have to be careful as to cut very slowly. So to start establishing a datum where to start screwing the mudguard in place, we just started from the bottom corner, as the two swages weren't in line, so now we line them up over here and at the door here. So then we can carry on with the top parts. So as we're getting closer to fitting the sides, we decided to put the bonnet in place so we can check the gap where it lines up with the mudguard. This one right here. So the bonnet fits quite nicely, however we need to fix one of the brackets as it's lifting from a corner. So what we did is we removed the brackets from their bolts and we're going to straighten out and make sure that the bonnet fits really well. place is to align the step front with the bonnet, just to have a nice even gap all over. So before there were some dents that we had to take care of. So what we did first was use a long piece of wood to sand out the areas, and that showed us the uneven areas. So after we were happy with that, we pulled out the dents that were low spots, and then we could match the edge of the bonnet. So a trick to make sure both curves are aligned is to check the edge of the bonnet against the step front. So here we're almost there. What we had to do was just straighten out the edge as it was raised in some parts. As we're getting closer to the front wing in place, we just had to prepare some parts, so we don't have to remove it again. Here we drilled some holes on the edges, which we will plug weld. And here we just extended this corner a little bit further out, so it will match the gap nicer. We also added holes that will go onto the A-pillar. So finally we're happy with the fit of the front wing. Here we left a narrow gap to weld in place. And here we're checking the flow of the windshield. That looks good. So this is something to watch out for, as the glass won't fit well after. So the next stage is to start welding in place. We're also where the screws are, we just have to watch out for this gap as we go along. As once we release the screws, the gap might change a little bit. So one of the most problematic areas was getting this gap correct. We found out that this corner over here makes a big difference. Even though the top part is fixed, this area can still move sideways. So what I did is I clamped the area very tightly, and then I can check the alignment with the rest of the panels. So far it looks pretty good. We'll just have to stretch a little bit the gap before welding, just like that. Areas we're almost done welding. First I tack welded the two panels together as usual, and then started filling in the spaces that were left. Trick I use is to put a light tube on the inner side of the panel, so then any pinholes that are left can be seen easily. And you can see the other side. So it's always important to have the two panels as level as possible, because then it will be very difficult to get them in line. So now it's time to do the final area, to weld the wing in place, which is this area here behind the door. So as you can see, I removed the door to access the area, and I had prepared the holes before we assembled the mudguard in place. Here I use the clamp to make sure the panels are fret against each other. So now that most of the welding on the front end is finished, we will start removing some of the surface rust that's on the panels, finish off with some body filler, and then give a coat of protective primer.